show before the low talk show before the show.
Low talking has creeped into my everyday life. How you doing today? It's like I am subliminal man all day long.
It's kind of like Jim Gaffigan voice, you know, the comedian. He has his own little voice on the side.
That's right. Oh yeah.
All right, let's go live.
You got one life, for crying out loud. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jordan.
Your daily dose of reality. Your daily dose of the Deej.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I need my daily dose of the Deej.
I make the news. I don't watch the news. I'm a leader.
The Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Listen, don't worry how to sell, baby. Worry about why people buy. And it's fun.
You don't need a 5-hour energy. All you need is the Sales Energizer.
Just when I think it's not going to be as fun as the one before, each one gets successfully better. What's the word I'm looking for? What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Boom!
That's exactly it. Do that. Let's do that.
Let's do that.
I tell you what, you know what I was cracking? We have a college guy on today, a smart guy, and so I was listening to the thing, and I do say, you know, for crying out loud, I say crying out loudly. Like,
hey, that's your own thing, Dan. You've carved your own path. Nobody says it like you. Only right.
You. But it's the proper. I mean, it's an adverb, right? You got to do that. So I feel good.
Let's do an AI prompt to speak in the voice of Dan Jordan and use sentences with more adverbs. I don't know. Is that a prompt? Probably.
Yeah, yes, that's a prompt. You know, they have. By the way, this year, you know what today is? I'm going to look in my little book.
Today is Friday all day long.
Yes, but it's also the 26th day of the best year of my life. You see, that's in my journal today. The 26th day of the best year. So I decided that my birthday was August 10th, and I decided, you know, I'm 59. So I'm in my 60th year. And so I said, you know what? This is going to be the best year of my life. So I started counting. And so I started doing all new stuff. Picked up all new hobbies, learning new stuff every day. I started writing with a fountain pen. I have ink all over my fingers. It's crazy. I know.
The world can't handle all of this at once.
By the way, have you ever used a fountain pen?
Yes. I mean, have you seen me? Do you see how old I am? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
So much fun. I don't know why it's fun, but I find myself doodling all day long. It's like, I can't, you're watching something or you're doing something and I'm sitting there doodling. I'm trying to write what they're saying. I can't stay in the lines. But you know what's good? My penmanship is it's not awful, but it's bad, which is, I don't know why. This is a weird thing. It's, it is encouraging me because I know if I do this for 3 months, it's going to get better. And like, I know it's going to get better. I don't know how good it's going to get. I know what, but I know it's going to get better. And so like, I got room for improvement. And so here I am in the best year of my life thinking I still got stuff to do. Hey. Can you imagine? I'm going to have the best handwriting a year from now.
That's a good aspiration. It's good. It's therapeutic for me to sit down and write, but I lose patience. And then, just like any therapy I've ever had, I got to get off the couch.
But here's the thing. And what happens is I have a time limit. Like next year, I'm going to have a marked difference, you know, because I'm going to keep, you know, dates. So I know what I look like now. And then, you know, August 10th next year, I'm going to look at it and it'll be different. And so I know it's going to get done because I have a time frame where it has to get done right there. And the reason why I'm saying this is because our next guest has created something for college students who, by the way, never get anything done. I mean, it's like hardly anybody finishes in 4 years anymore. But our next guest has figured out a way to get it done. And he's world renowned in doing this for college students. And believe it or not, the first place he's here to share this new invented process that's guaranteed results, he's sharing with this audience today here on Dan Jordan Live. So without any further ado, please help me welcome my educated best friend, Carey Dukes.
Yeah. Let's go.
Oh, God. Man. You know what? Carey, so
that's on me. That one's on me, Carey.
So your arms were up, and then they went down before they came back up. Now, isn't that interesting? I mean, that's a psychological thing. That's a weird thing. Like, it's when you're ready to do something, yes, you're like this. Yep. But this first sign of, something's not quite right, your arms come down.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's a good psychological thing. So just like, here's a life lesson that's just popping out of my head.
This is welcome to the show, Carey.
This is
be ready. There's squirrels flying everywhere.
Okay. Carey, have you ever tried to open a pickle jar?
No chance. No, I do not like pickles, and I will not open a pickle jar. No.
Okay. All right. First rule of being a guest is play along with me. Nobody would know that. Go ahead and lie. Okay.
You don't understand my dislike of pickles, though. I'm sorry.
My son hates pickles too, so I get it.
I should have. Okay. Sometimes a jar is hard to open.
Yes. Agreed.
And so here's something I learned as a kid, and I passed it along to my kids. And they, for some reason, it's like folklore in our house. So when you're trying to open a jar, and just when you're about to give up, stay with it for another 2 seconds. That's when it opens. I don't know why, but try that when you're out there. Just when you think you're done, your muscles are done, 2 more seconds.
2 more
boom,
seconds.
it happens. And it's like a magic thing. It's just a little bit at the end.
It's a life hack.
And so here's the thing. When you're in a situation where your arms are in the air and you're exposed and you feel uncomfortable, hold on for another 2 seconds. Because everybody else will come down and you'll be left with all eyes on you. Yeah. So that uncomfortable experience that people kind of shrivel, hold on for 2 more seconds and you'll get all the attention. It's just like the pickle jar.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I will tell you, that's one of the reasons I started watching your show, because your energy and ability to stay positive was fascinating to me, because it is not natural for me. As I told you when you and I, talked a while back, I find it infectious the way you are able to just stay positive in all these videos on a daily basis.
It's like a virus.
That is something I aspire to, and so that's part of the reason.
Yeah, well, so you're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
Rule number 1: make the host look amazing.
It's all because of this.
Yeah.
One day I decided to change. And I said, you know what? I'm in control of very few things.
Yeah.
But one of them is my attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, and I think this is I know you're a college professor, which we're going to get to, but for whatever reason, I'm in the mood to talk about myself right now.
Let's talk about change.
Please don't encourage him, Carey. Please.
But now I lost what I was going to say. Imagine that. What is going on? And it was some magic. I'm sure it'll happen later. What did I say?
You were talking about your change. You made a change, I guess, from an attitude perspective.
Yes, very good. Thank you. So, you have very few things that you can control in your life, but one of them is your attitude and your presence in public. So, if there's nobody around and you're at a 4-way stop sign, but there's literally no one around, okay if you go through it. No, nothing. I'm not legally, but it's okay. But if somebody's watching. If there's somebody at the side of the road, then you don't do it, because then you're you're moving that process forward. It's the same thing with a positive attitude. I may be a grump all day long by myself. That's fine. But if you're in public, I believe it's your moral authority to share positive vibes and to be an uplifting person to whoever you're going to meet, because you're in public, you're sharing that stuff.
You certainly check all the boxes in that, I can tell you.
Yeah. So when you're in as a professor and with kids today, do you find yourself managing emotions more than in the past, or how do you handle the situation with the current crop of kids?
They are, in some ways there's a change, in other ways it's the same. Okay. Because I see a lot of these students are what I was doing 30 years ago. They think the way I thought 30 years ago. There are a lot that have different priorities and different things that are impacting their life, but at the same time, they all want the same thing when it's all said and done. They want to earn their degree. They want to get through in as least amount of time as possible. They want to enjoy their sports, but there's so much unknown today because they're trained differently than we were when we were grown, when we were in college and in high school, especially. Our goal, we had a clear roadmap, if you will, for how we approach problems. I use this all the time with them, this idea of critical thinking, right? Because they're preached to, you need to be a critical thinker. But if you ask them what that means, they really struggle with what that means. So I try to turn it into terms they understand. Like, to me, critical thinking is looking at problems with the idea that you're going to continually improve them. And if you approach problems that way, you ultimately are doing critical thinking. But your attitude for improvement actually is an easier thing for them to understand. They don't grasp what it means to be a critical thinker, but they get when you say, look at problems and try to figure out a better way to do it. Even if you fail, it's okay to fail, like on quizzes and tests. Are you learning the process? Well, what it takes to be an effective learner in a particular subject. So I spent a lot of time on that, trying to encourage them that even though you may have a bad start or a tough beginning, there's a way to achieve it, but you got to stay at it. You got to build a plan, execute the plan, and at some point in the future, you'll be completed with the program. So,
wow, that's just like life, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That's great. So, what is the problem that your course is solving?
Yeah, there is a major challenge, and I started looking at this problem when I'm teaching, especially the freshman class. There's statistics that I put on my website, and it's in the book, relative to how many students actually finish in 4 years, and it's 59% of students don't finish in 4 years, so only 41% do, and anywhere from 25 to 35 come into their freshman year. They don't come back to that institution at the end of that year. And those numbers are pretty consistent over the last really 15 to 20 years. That hasn't really changed a lot. So I started wondering why. Well, when I look at my freshmen, I can see the ones that are headed down the path, and it's that what I call week 0 to week 4. Because
really?
Yeah, oh yeah. And I had 2 in my office yesterday and another one in my office today, and it's the same thing. When you come into college, you have an idea of what the expectations are, and so many of them have the same expectations that they had from high school, okay? And it's not the same thing. It is a different roadmap, and success in college depends on consistency of effort from week 0 to week 16. You are not spoon-fed individual assignments as much as you are in high school, so there's less opportunities to earn grades in little tidbits. They're more chunked, right? Quizzes, tests, papers. And that chunking is especially visible in the first 4 weeks because they're left alone and to some degree on their own devices. And we have a lot of first year experience programs within universities, but they start in week 1. And in some cases, time management is a week 7 or 8 endeavor, where time management should be, okay, well, like the students that came in yesterday. Hey, I'm studying. I failed my first 2 quizzes. What do I need to do? How many hours a week are you currently studying for your coursework? And he looks at me and goes, what do you mean hours a week? I said, well, you were in class for 15 hours. How many of you are actually committed to studying on top of your sports or other things, and not realizing that if you're in class for 15, you need to be studying for 20 to 25, especially as a first semester freshman. They don't know that typically the majority of them don't have that information. So then they're upset because, wait a minute, that sounds like a full-time job. Exactly. That is exactly what it is. That's a 40-hour work week. If you want to be out of here in 4 years, it's going to take you 40 hours this first year, especially.
Wow. Okay. So you told me what happens when they're in your office. What happens once they leave?
Well, the first thing I do is I give them a grid. I'll say a grid Monday through Sunday. There's 168 blocks in it. Why are there 168 blocks? Because there's 168 hours from Monday to Sunday.
Oh,
and
wow.
I say, I want you to black out every block where you have class, you have tests or not, when you have class or where you have practice, things you have to do, right, for sports or for school. Now let's look at all the blocks that are empty. Now I want you to pick 20 of those blocks, and here's a black pen for the ones that are required, a red marker to mark out the ones that you're going to set aside. That's your study blocks. And I leave them with I give them the grid and said, this is your study plan for this semester. I don't care what you're studying in that time, but if it's red, you don't not have nothing to do. You need to be studying during that time block. And then I try to get them to work on next week and the week after this week. Don't be working on this week's problem this week, because that you end up playing catch up. So I'm trying to get them to study within those time blocks, not specific to subjects, but specific to time, working on getting ahead. Because in week 4, which is what we talk about a lot, every class pretty much has a test, their first test. And if you're not prepared for that first test, the majority of academic scholarships are lost in week 4. The majority of freshmen are lost. That's when they lose them. And I see it every semester, because they're not ready for the quizzes. They're not ready for testing on the test for preparation. And they'll bomb 3 out of 5 tests. Now, not every student, but a significant number of them. And that is what leads to the 41% getting out of here in 4 years. That's why, because they're losing it on that first year. And they may say, hey, this school, I've lost my academic scholarship. There's no reason to stay at this institution. So they leave the next year. Or maybe 25% of those 30% never come back to school at all. They leave college altogether. And the frustrating thing is, if they would have planned it from week 0 or before they got here, what they were facing and what they were going to be up against, and had an idea, then it would have been a lot more. There would have been a lot more success in that first.
This is amazing. So, how many weeks in are you guys into your school semester?
We're into week 3 right now. So next week's the first test. Yeah.
And you're expecting a few more people in your office.
Oh, yeah. I ran out of books, actually. I had books I brought in the beginning of the semester, and these kids have been, hey, go talk. Because the book was just released. I mean, like a month ago. So,
well, what book are you referring to? What book are you referring to?
The Ready, Set, Change book, which is how to conquer your
you don't have one to show the car buying public here right now?
I literally gave my last book away this morning before the class. So I've got to go back and pick up. I have some more in storage and shipping. I don't have any more in my office. They literally cleaned me out this morning.
So this is the book here.
Yeah,
maybe you could explain it. So when you talked about that grid, and I want you to talk about the book, but I just see so many correlations to life, and especially in sales. When someone gets their first job, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
they're learning the whole and they think, oh, the work is just when I'm there, those 8 hours. But I always say that there's 24 hours in a day. You got 8 hours to work, you got 8 hours to sleep, and then you have 8 hours to work on yourself. And how you utilize those other 8 hours is the difference maker between your success or the speed of which you're a success. Because I think work's the same way. Can this be? Go ahead. You were about to say
how efficient you are. Everybody has those hours. How efficient you are at using those 8 hours is critical, is what I really focus on with these students, because I teach them that, look, these activities get you through the first semester, like how to do vocabulary. Because to your point, if you leave college and you get into a sales role, you have an entirely new vocabulary you must learn. You need to understand the words and the meaning of those words and the jargon within the industry. Well, you can use these same skills to learn those types of things when you go into these new settings. It's just about adapting to the change that you're getting ready to face or that you're currently facing and building a strategy on that. So we speak about that in the book. I go through that yeah, this is for the college freshman, but the model around managing change is any change. It doesn't matter. And how you attack it, from are you committed? Where you come from does not matter, except to the fact you need to recognize where you come from, how your family situation, affects you and impacts you. We talk about that in the book because I don't care where you came from, but you need to know so you understand why you see things the way you do. And then here's a strategy to deal with that. We go basically through the 6 variables of change readiness throughout the book and strategies to how to implement those. Again, doesn't matter if it's sales jobs, operations jobs, whatever afterwards, they're going to go through that same process again. And
even a job seeker.
Yeah.
I mean, someone who's looking for any kind of change in your life.
That's a ready, set, launch activity. Actually, that's some of the future. Now you've gone through college. How are you going to launch your career? What are you looking for? Are you ready for that? The same process that we build out in the book. We just applied that model to the book from the research I'd done in the past. So.
By the way, did you just get a haircut? You look good. I mean, you're tight right now. Look at that.
You never tell me when I look good, Dan. What am I, a chopped liver over here?
It's the repowering of the computer that's got it all.
Yeah, you got those earmuffs on. And also, you absolutely have a voice for scholarly teaching and radio.
Yeah, you've done this a few times. Yeah.
Actually, I've never done this. I've never done a podcast ever, but I do talk a lot to my students. I can tell you that I spend a lot of time talking to them. So,
well, that's great. So how you seem passionate, which is very inviting. How did you get into this line of work?
Well, I spent 25 years in logistics and supply chain. I ran companies. I fixed broken trucking companies. I looked at customer models and the way they ran their supply chain, and I transitioned I took broken organizations and tried to turn them into at least break even or profitability. And mostly companies that were losing money or organizations that were struggling with the cost associated with what they were doing and turning them into a solution that would actually provide more value. So I've been focused on that for years and years. The issue with it was it's kind of got to be the same thing over and over again. And all of my kids are now they're out of college. They're not out of college. I have one still in, but they're all out of the house. So I started thinking about, well, what do I want to do for the next 25 years? Well, I kind of done that already. So I came back and said, you know what? I would actually like to teach kids that are my children's age, a little younger, how to actually function in business and in society when they get out. Because I interviewed so many students who just, they weren't trained with how to function within organizations. And I want a group like the folks here at North Greenville, when they graduate, I help them with internships. I try to get them opportunities, but understanding that, look, you got to contribute. If you don't, the message to our youth is not about value. And I preach, if you can't provide value, then people are not going to want you around. But if you do, then you're going to stand out from the crowd because there's so few people who are focused on value creation. And so that's why I came back.
That is so true.
25
years. Yeah. A million years ago, Zig Ziglar used to say, he goes, listen, even if you get a job, you can get a job at McDonald's for $5 an hour. He goes, this was back in the day, whatever it was. And then he says, but when you take the garbage out, if you whistle while you do it, they'll give you $7.
That's right. And I tell them that. I say, it doesn't matter what you do. You approach it by trying to improve the process or your attitude or how you can provide value to the person. And it doesn't matter if it's an internal customer or an external customer. Because kids today have this idea that if they hired by somebody, that's the end of the road. No, that's the beginning of the road. And these are customers just as if you ran a business. So, and they seem to respond to that because I don't think they hear that a lot, or they haven't heard that. So
yeah, and they also have to understand too, and I'm going through this with my sons who, one's graduated from college and one is in the middle of it, and that is, and I tell them this all the time, like relationships are the key to everything. If you graduate with a 4.0 magna summa, like whatever accreditations and tassels you got all over your robe when you walk down that aisle, person that's hiring cares less about that than you think, and they care more about how you are as a person, how you connect with them, and if you don't, none of this other stuff matters. It's only gotten you maybe just glanced at. So it's all about those relationships, and I love how in the book you've got these sort of 4 pillars or sections, right? And the one thing that jumped out at me, Carey, was the one that I thought you would lead with, right? The one that I thought would be at the top is what we're talking about, which is tactical, right? Is sort of like, I thought, okay, all right, this is going to be like real functional, tactical, like, kind of roadmap or whatever. And that certainly is in there, but you didn't lead with that. You led with psychological and social. And you also touched not only on the tactical, but the spiritual. Can you touch on those 4 sections and talk about the importance of those?
And there's a reason I didn't lead with the tactical, because if I lead with the tactical, the avenue to apply what I'm trying to teach you in the book is focused on the tactical freshman experience. When in reality, what I'm trying to talk about is how do you look at change that you're from a psychological perspective, and how do you deal with it? Because who you are matters, but only you know that. No one else can tell you, because no one knows that what you feel about yourself, what your self-belief is. So I focused on that in the beginning of every chapter because I want to address that immediately. And it's individualized. Your belief in yourself and your self-efficacy or your self-image plays a larger part than people realize in success or failure, because you can be that 4.0 student, but if you don't think you add value to people or you don't think you matter, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because you're going to find a way to self-destruct. And I want you to recognize that. And then we give them tools and ways to work on that from a psychological perspective. Now, as far as the social, there's a lot of kids that struggle with that connection, more so now than ever. These phones, they're on these phones all the time, and they don't build those personal engagements like I think that are good for them. And that's a big part of building of the community within institutions, especially when you start to kind of deal with people that are in the same boat you are. Because I want to tell them, too many times students think that they're the only ones facing these problems, when in reality, on a campus of 2,000 kids, there's probably 150, 200 that are in the exact same boat you are, reaching out and getting to know them. And finally, spiritually, I believe it's a central component to who we are. I think it's central, and I think each one of those sections and those variables that we talk about on change, the Bible and historical records related to the Bible support that. And there's comfort in that. And so that's a part of that, especially for the Christian institutions like where I work. I think that's a focus every day. If we're going to try to lead and transform individuals, then we need to do it on all 4 levels, not just 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, it can make them feel like they're not alone, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, that, and you talk about, the centered part of that, and things. There's a lot of different things that happen in your first, coming out of high school and going into college. And if you feel like you're by yourself, and sometimes, they're traveling across the country, or, even in their own states, it's like you got a bunch of people you don't know, and it can help to have that as a center and not feel like you're alone.
Yeah, and there's 100. I wrote the book almost like a workbook, because there's 112 memory verses in it for that reason, because they're tying to specific time, loneliness, homesick, all that. We tie verses that speak directly to those. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about it being a functional workbook. It's absolutely, it's one to keep. I mean, this is something, again, for people just even in the workplace or looking for employment.
Yeah.
It'll show you how to do it. I jotted down a couple questions with my fountain pen.
Yes, for your handwriting exercises.
Yes. It's embarrassing how poor your handwriting becomes when you don't use it.
Mine's really bad.
Yeah. Also, paper is important too. You got to get good paper too. Anyhow, here's in terms of psychology, what I've noticed with my kids and my kids' friends is living up to their own expectations. And so many times, yes, I'm fully committed to waking up early and getting to this class. And I wrote it all down and I did all my stuff and then not doing it. Or I'm fully committed to eating better and then not doing it. And they're, in essence, they feel like they're lying. This is psychological, but they kind of think like they're lying to themselves, and nobody likes a liar. Nobody likes people who are, not fulfilling their promise. And then it's like that downward cycle.
Right.
And so, and in terms of what you're doing, this is my fear. Dude, you already screwed up after the first 4 weeks. What's the point?
Well, that is exactly how the ones who think they're faking it feel. Because you know what they'll do? They'll come in, and this is why the book didn't just appear. It came out of conversations with students. So I have students come in, and because they're taking my classes or so, and they've gotten to know me, they'll tell me point blank, look, I have 5 classes. I failed 4 of the test. I failed yours, but I failed yours less than I did the others. So I'm going to forget about these other 3, and I'm just going to focus on these 2 and try to make a decent grade in the rest of the semester. And I stop them right there. I mean, I hear this multiple times, and I said, that's not going to work. You're not going to get out of here in less than 8 years doing that. Let's figure out why you got here, how we can address how you got here, and then let's build a plan on how you can execute to improve that. And I'm actually going to give you a story, because I had a student do exactly that last semester. He was a junior. He wasn't even a senior. He was a junior. He walks in, he makes a 50 on his first test that he has with my class. And I teach my classes different because I'm trying to prepare them for working in the workplace. And he makes a 50 the first day. And we start talking about, he comes to my class and says, how can I improve? What am I going to do? And we build our grid out, right? We start going through, how are you studying? Even though you've been here 3 years, what's your plan on a weekly basis? And then in addition to that, I said, all right, let's start. You come to my office 15 minutes before class every single day we have class. And let's talk about what you've done to prep for that day's class. And this is what we talk about in the book. You're prepping with these tools that I give you for the participation of the class that's getting ready to happen. He did that. He ended up not doing great in the class, but he ended up doing well. But the important thing was he learned. He goes over the summer, does an internship. At the end of the summer, they offer him $75,000 plus bonus to go work for this place that he had been. And the reason was why? Because he was presenting value the entire summer that he was there, because I beat that into his head the entire semester of the class. And it was, I gave him, students, he was doing 19 pages worth of notes on one chapter. I said, that's not even no efficiency, right? That's not efficient. You just wrote a new chapter. You can't study that. In my book, you get 3 slides. That's it. Right. You have to summarize what you read in 3 slides, guys. That's it. If you can't do that, then you're doing it wrong. And then use those slides when you go into class to prepare, to have conversations about the topic and discuss it. So I try, even though they may be farther down the road than freshmen, I'm still giving them the same blocking and tackling, like you said, the practical things to apply, because otherwise it's meaningless. It can't just be theoretical. It also has to be practical as well.
Well, yeah, right. And I'm just thinking of the ROI and the opportunity cost lost by staying an extra year. It's not just the expense of your tuition. It's the money lost from not getting that $75,000 job.
It's both. Yeah, it's a delta, right? It's a negative 75 and a plus, or negative. One's a plus, one's a minus. So it's bigger than 40,000 on tuition, right? It's a bigger number than that. It's triple that.
That's so obviously the question that everybody's dying to know is, you have how many kids?
I have 4.
All right. How many of them graduated in 4 years?
Well, one of them still in. 2 of them didn't go to college.
Oh,
They didn't want to go to
even
college, which is fine.
so you're 2 for 2 right there.
The other one's actually ahead. She'll finish in 3 years. She started in high school. But I give my kids that look, if they want to pursue this career or that career, I don't push them to do anything. The first one got out in exactly 4 years because he had a battle plan from day one. And he went to a school, which I shall not name, somewhere near Clemson, South Carolina. Not going to name it, though. But he got out of there in 4 years. And my daughter will get out in 3. The other 2 boys, both are working in industry, and that's what they want to do. Yeah. And higher education that's not what stirs the drink for them. And they're doing quite well. So.
Yeah, I love that. So but that ROI, is that a conversation with your students from day one?
The first day, if people are losing sight of the to your point, the cost of the extra year, plus the negative impact of a year's salary, that you not only could earn another year's salary that you would have otherwise got, but think about, you've got inflation, you've got getting closer to a promotion. All of that is happening, and we all have a finite number of years. And if people are saving for college, assuming 4 years, that's the number everybody uses when they start doing their saving for college calculations. College costs are going up. The savings amount is not sufficient. If you've only saved for 4 years and it's taken most folks north of 5, then you're going to end up with a gap on the back end. And
you know what? You're right. I recall hearing that when we were going to all those classes about, preparing your kid, and they said, prepare for 5 years. It's very rare. Right. And so isn't that funny? They just gave into it. And you, Carey Dukes, you don't putz around.
If somebody says I need 120 hours to graduate, I'm going to figure out how to do 120 hours in 4 years. And we're going to go semester by semester. And I did the same thing because I had to pay for my own undergrad, and I came in unprepared. But I figured out that, okay, this is how I get ahead of the work that needs to be done and finish in 4 years, because I'm not paying 1 penny more than what I have to. And I don't look at it as extra time. I look at it as additional unnecessary cost that I could have gotten out in 4.
Chris Stone, this falls right into our famous adage of the sales energizer: success loves speed. Yeah. That's what it is. It's truly an ROI. If people are expecting something, if your job expects something out of you in 6 months, do it in 3.
Right?
There's no law.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, because if you start on day 0 with a plan, and then you work incrementally every day, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built day by day.
Exactly.
Just little bits each day.
And don't we work way more efficiently when when we know that thing's coming up, right? So it's like, I can, this thing's 4 years. I can take 12 credit hours this time. I'll just catch up later. And but if you know that this thing is coming up, and for me, if I've got a video that I've got to make and this person really needs it next week, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to work really hard and get it done. It'll probably be the best it could be, as opposed to me just kind of like nitpicking it over the course of 60 days. I think we knowing we've got something impending makes us, there is some sort of creative juice in there that allows us to finish.
You know how I address this with students? I run into this every year at the beginning of school. I just had the reason I thought of this is it happened last week. The first day of school, I say, hey, you want to earn an extra 1 point on your final grade? Give me a 2-minute video of these and answer these 4 questions, which is basically, it really is a tool to help me remember their name, because I'm terrible with names, but if I see a video, I can remember. But I say, it's Wednesday's day 1. You have until next Friday to do it. Okay. But I don't tell them that I cut it off at 2:00 on Friday afternoon, because they assume they have until 11:59 on Friday to do it.
That's funny.
And I get the opportunity to express exactly what you just said. Why are you waiting till the last minute? Well, I thought, well, you didn't check, but you could have done this at any point over the last week and a half,
Right.
just by taking 2 minutes out of your day, and yet you put it off to the last minute. And all I'm really trying to do is teach that lesson. Exactly that. If you know there's something in front of you, start on it now.
Yeah.
Be done
And
with it.
and if you can get it done, it's a victory. There's something of, the whole wake up and make your bed thing, or like for me, some days I'll wake up and I'll just grab a pile of dirty laundry and walk it down to my washer dry, like fill up the dishwasher, like those things we don't love to do, and they can pile up, but when you get it done, man, you feel awesome. It's like, okay, now
How
I
many
can.
times have we finished things early and then said, oh, you know what? I should have said this.
Mhm.
But because you finished it early, you can go back and make adjustments. You can't do that if you're at the last minute trying to finish something.
And it really truly does become a life habit. People that are late on their tests are late getting to work.
You got it.
And they're late all. And so I've always had the habit. Now, I'm a terrible driver. I know I'm going to get lost. I plan for getting lost. I went to the lake last week. I've been to this lake house. I know the exit. I've been there, hundreds of times.
Right.
But I'm when I'm in conversation or in thought,
Oh God, it's the worst.
I drive straight.
He'll just go, Chris, I gotta go. I missed my exit like 4 miles ago.
Yeah. So that's it. I missed my exit basically going home, and so I'm just going there. But it's not a problem for me because I always leave 2 hours early. And so I plan on getting lost. I'm going to turn around. I'm still early. See you later, potato. I don't have to worry. And it's just a habit. So you're really teaching life habits for people.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any grown-ups take the course and kind of associated, or have you ever associated it with the corporate world? This type of thing.
No, I the three areas thus far that I've used it is I used it when I was evaluating autonomous commercial vehicles or driverless trucks for trucking. That was where I originally developed it, and I applied it to that model. And then I took it from there and I applied it. I modified it from lessons learned, and we used it in my partner and I used it in evaluating mental health counseling patients and whether or not they were first ready for counseling, then were they improving, and then ultimately were they ready to exit counseling. So we used the concepts around it both in mental health. We did about 5,000 assessments with mental health using it, but we haven't, and obviously now that we're using it with the schools, but no, not businesses. I've had conversations with businesses about it, especially around technology, because I've had so many, and I talk about this in some of the parts of the book where I've experienced just completely undone, technology implementations that could have been averted if you would have measured it before you flipped the switch. If you would have just done an assessment on where everybody was, and then used the output of that assessment to coach up, if you will, the folks associated with the change they were considering, it would not have happened. And some of those I was directly related to because I was a vendor of customers, or I worked alongside other folks that ran into those challenges. And so, not in a business setting.
I just see so many correlations just with people's success in whatever project, a real project management tool. It's excellent. Right. Now, is everybody the same? Like, does everybody follow the same path with it? Or so how do people know? How do they get started? Where do they start on the program?
Well, as far as the school program, as far the book itself, you can go onto our website, www.therci.net. And that's where the book is. As far as if they were considering a change or looking at wanting to have an evaluation done on themselves or their organization, you can contact me through that website as well. We'd be happy to build something out for you to do the assessment. The book
What
there.
do you mean by the assessment? What is the assessment?
The book is incorporated. It's 2 assessments incorporated in the book. The first step in taking this book is finding out where you are. What is your score on a 0 to 100 scale for your readiness to change. The reason I do that is because the rest of the book is going to apply to the individual if I know where the individual is along that continuum. Because I'm measuring the 6 variable components that make up readiness with the thought in mind that if I can improve your readiness, I will improve your success of implementation. It doesn't matter if it's school or career launch or sales or whatever. But to do that, I first need to get your assessment of readiness. So if you're looking for the book, it's at the site. If you're interested in looking at a problem you're facing from a technology or business perspective or something along those lines, then we would use the same instrument to design that for you. But it would give you, it's not all linear, which is what most assessments are. There are variables that matter more along your success than a linear relationship. So if you're committed to a change, it matters, but does it matter as much as context? I say it doesn't. I think where you come from matters more than your commitment. Because if you don't believe in yourself, and this comes from historical research we've done, if you don't believe in yourself initially, or you don't make that change, you're going to set it up for failure, and you're going to work to destroy whatever it is the change you're trying to make. I believe that's why 70% of all change initiatives fail, because people or individuals within the change actually don't want it to succeed deep down.
Wow. So how do you?
It's true.
How do you make that determination when somebody takes that assessment? Like, what are some of the clues? And if someone's watching, listening right now, like, do I believe in myself? Like, do I, like, what are those? What are some indicators maybe for someone?
I have multiple questions that I ask related to each variable. Okay. And then I take each one of those variable components, and then I calculate what is their score out of a particular score. Now I put what I call distractor questions within there. It only takes about 12 minutes to go through the assessment. Once that's done, I run that through the algorithm that we built to measure individual component readiness, the variable components, along with the overarching score. And out of that, you get this is where you are feedback-wise. This is where you are along the continuum of these variables. And this is where your readiness level is relative to the overall endeavor. So depending on what it is you're considering will depend on, how the feedback comes back. But each component is calculated based on our historical analysis of, okay, for this type of analysis, we need to be at this number for change-related effort, for example, which is one of the variables we measure. A great example, and I mentioned this one in the book, when you're implementing IT software, right? Large companies implementing an ERP. $5 billion, they launched the ERP. 90 days later, they find out that all their vendors cut them off. Why? Well, they cut them off because when they switched to the ERP, they had the operations managers entering the purchase orders, who the operations manager said, that's not my job, that's somebody else, and no one ever asked me if I wanted to do that. If you would have implemented this tool prior to that launch, that would have been sticking out like a sore thumb in a readiness assessment. And you would have known this is going to be a problem before the switch is flipped.
And people have those internal challenges themselves.
Yes.
So how do you have a QR code or something? How do I take that assessment?
Well, you could take the assessment. I have QR codes that I can post, or you can go to the website, just drop me a note. I'll be happy to send you one. As far as students, I can send that back to you today. If it's something other than teaching right now, because this is where my focus is on the teaching side.
Sure.
Yeah, there you go. There's the assessment in the book is specific to you as an individual, though. So this would be a generic one where you can take a look at it on the website. But once you get your book, you'll have an individual assessment, and once you take that, that's only for you. It doesn't transfer to anyone else.
Got it.
And
wow. My gosh, Chris Stone, this is far more interesting than I thought.
Yeah, you said it was going to be terrible today, Dan.
Way to go, Kerr.
So anybody who lets me talk about change, I'm happy, guys. I'm telling you.
Yeah, most people avoid change, but those that are really committed to it, it's exciting. Chris, you and I were talking about this, before we even got started here. It's exciting when you're going into a new place that you've not been before.
Yeah.
And to try things. This is great. By the way, Carey, is Chris Stone not the world's best producer? You see how he brought up that you see how he brought up that QR code? I mean, you just got to mention it and boom, there it goes. He's a man, and he's doing 100 different things. You're not even seeing. He's like you ever see a duck on water where their legs are going crazy?
I've already taken my readiness score here, and I think we're going to have to talk after the show here.
If we can have a moment,
That's excellent.
That. My partner Mark, when I originally did that, and my students, sometimes I actually get feedback where, in fact, one said that I was rude, condescending, and mean, because when I asked her a question, she answered it wrong, and I said no. She had never been told no before, so she didn't like that. But when I wrote the responses on the assessments, to your point, my buddy said, look, you're going to have to create a video because people are wanting to quit college. When I first did this, they're going to want to quit college because you're so negative. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to tell you where you are. Right. And so now we know where you are. Let's get better. Right. Let's get prepared. Let's get energized, as Dan says. Right. Let's get going. But you need to know where you are. And I'm going to be honest with you when I tell you.
Right. It's a little tough love. And I think a lot of people need that. Right. They've been told all their lives, just, everything's awesome. Everything's great. Everything's amazing. And sometimes they got to say, well, like, here's some areas for opportunity for you. Yes. We want you to be better. And so, like, it's like you watch American Idol. Or have you ever watched any of these things? And every once in a while there'll be this story that they'll tell about how amazing they are, and they'll interview their family, and then they'll get up in front of the judges and they're awful. They're just like unlistenable, right? and they're shocked that they're being told that they're terrible, and they're crushed. And it's like they're obviously, you don't want anybody to feel, terrible. No one wants anybody to feel terrible. They want to be inspired so that they can do better. So there's somewhere in between, right? That you want to be, but you can't tell everybody they're awesome.
Well, I think we owe it to this younger generation to tell them the truth, to tell them what is really the situation, to the best we know, right? And in this case, we're measuring something. Now, if it's my opinion, I tell them that too, because when I talk to athletes, I'm like, look, I don't know if you're going to make the NFL, but let's look at the math. Some percentage you'll make the NFL and get paid to play a sport. It's a 100% certainty. If you get this bachelor's degree, somebody's going to pay you to do something with this bachelor's degree. It's not true. It's 100%. And they look at it. I never thought of it that way. So.
Well, and at the end of the day, and I appreciate you coming, the amount of wisdom that you've dropped that I'm able to take home is incredible. So I appreciate this for our life, and I'm sure our listeners will listen, take the same wisdom from it. But at the end of the day, what I'm getting from this is ultimately you're going to get what you deserve. Sometimes you get a little bit more, sometimes you get a little bit less, but when it all washes out, it's not you or your parents who get to tell you what you're worth. It's the marketplace. Bingo. And so when you learn these skills and internalize these skills, they are going to get you out of college in 4 years, but it's also going to get you to the pinnacle of your career a lot quicker than you would if you didn't have these habits that Dr. Carey is hooking you up with here on the Dan Jordan live show. Chris Stone, once again, knocking it out of the park. Carey, I can't thank you enough to come, and for all yous watching. Oh, did I say yous? I'm back in New Jersey. For all of you wonderful people watching, I wish nothing but good things for you to happen in your life for the rest of your life. Eat well, live long, and prosper. Go get them today.